Now, the top of the hour on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn presents the Green News Report.
We're going to hit him very hard. You know, we got to smack him a little bit.
Trump's war on Iran pulls in more countries, further imperiling global energy supplies.
And as Oregon deals with what will likely be a record-breaking year for fires, the state was dealt another blow. Federal grants for two of the largest fires were just denied.
Trump overrode FEMA to deny disaster aid to blue states. Plus, Germany and California hit new records for cheap, clean, renewable energy.
So there's that. All of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
I don't think we ought to just cut and run. If we can stand the pain of the rising cost of energy, we need to stay the course.
Yeah. What do you mean we, white man? I mean Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, at this point, we're on the verge of becoming the War News Report. But what do you got for us today?
Well, first, Donald Trump's war on Iran expanded this week to include Saudi Arabia, the Red Sea, and the Caspian Sea as oil and gas tankers remain parked in the Strait of Hormuz. Also this week, another hit to global diesel fuel supplies after Ukrainian forces struck two of Russia's biggest oil refineries, significantly disrupting Russia's exporting capacity. On a side note, a new study warns that ships stuck in the Strait of Hormuz could potentially trigger a global super spreader event of invasive species.
Oh, great.
Because of marine organisms attached to the idle vessels that will eventually get transported to other ecosystems around the world.
Oh, good Lord.
In other news, as France and Spain battle historic, out-of-control, climate-intensified wildfires fueled by extreme heat and drought, officials are working on a massive economic aid package to help hundreds of thousands of people and businesses recover. The European Union's crisis commissioner told Reuters that the EU's wildfire response must, quote, evolve to keep up with accelerating climate change. Some economists are warning European leaders that they can no longer afford to ignore the economic impacts of human-caused global warming, that repetitive extreme heat waves have exposed major shortcomings in Europe's infrastructure.
Yeah.
And governments will need to invest billions of euros over coming years to protect the public from increasingly dangerous, deadly heat that is already hurting multiple economic sectors.
Not that anyone's been trying to warn them for decades at this point.
The economists also warned that investors must wake up to the threat that climate change poses to asset values.
Yeah, the investors were warned too.
But in the U.S., as the costs of climate-supercharged weather disasters pile up, Politico has obtained internal administration documents showing that Donald Trump intervened to deny $227 million in disaster funding to 5 Democratic-run states, rejecting eligible disaster requests after FEMA approved the funding.
What a pathetic jerk.
Overall, Trump has approved less than a quarter of blue state disaster requests, but approved 90% for red states, an unprecedented rate since FEMA's creation in 1979.
Twisted.
Relatedly, a coalition of 25 states sued the Trump administration this week, accusing FEMA and DHS of endangering public safety by withholding hundreds of millions of dollars in already approved federal grants for disaster preparedness in an attempt to coerce those states to comply with Trump's unrelated election and immigration policies. The lawsuit also challenges a provision permitting FEMA to cancel grants anytime to punish states. Here's New Jersey's Democratic Attorney General Jennifer Davenport.
None of this is legal. Congress never authorized FEMA to rewrite state election laws, to force states into participating in federal immigration enforcement, or to terminate funding on a whim. These conditions violate the Administrative Procedure Act ignore the Constitution, and threaten the safety and security of all Americans.
Oh, now we're going to start worrying about what's legal?
Finally, some better news.
Good.
In Germany, for the first time ever, wind and solar power together have generated more electricity than fossil fuels. According to the UK's Carbon Brief, the success of renewables in Germany mirrors the European Union as a whole. In June, clean solar energy became the EU's largest single source of electricity, generating more power than nuclear, natural gas, and wind energy. And California just became the first major electric grid system on the planet to generate more than 50% of its electricity from solar across the entire month.
Yes, it can be done. Let's say we do it. For much more on all of these reports and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find, follow, and share us planet-wide on the social medias, especially Blue Sky at Green News Report. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Please help Progressive Voices support the Green News Report by stopping by bradblog.com/donate.
Yes, it is Monday. It is Monday. I take great pleasure in our topics for today. But I do want to say I did see Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man, one of the biggest openings ever. Over 200 million, right? Second biggest ever? Wow. Second biggest opening weekend ever. It was good. I enjoyed it. As a comic book nerd, I take issue with some of the details, some of the stuff that's baked in that is contradictory to canon, the stuff I grew up with, the stuff that, X-Men fans and Spider-Man fans really know and cherish some of those details. They play with it. MCU's been fudging stuff in their multiversal pursuits, and that's fine. It was still super entertaining, but the stuff they do with the Punisher, they have softened the Punisher. I don't know how many of you guys were big fans of the Punisher, but now he's embroiled in these Spider-Man narratives, and they have softened him, and I don't appreciate that. I saw a couple other movies over the weekend. I'm going to mention those later, though. But I did enjoy Spider-Man. Went with the fam. It was a good time. It was a fun movie, action-packed. I enjoyed it. I suggest you see it if you're a fan of the MCU and you're going to get into this new arc that they're building with the Doctor Doom stuff. Start with this. It's a good film. I had fun. I enjoyed it. When I get into today's topic, you're not going to hear anything about Iran. We let that simmer 2 weeks ago. It exploded last week, late 2 weeks ago, like two Thursdays ago, 2 Fridays ago. Then I got into it again before we took that break. We're going to let it simmer. But we are farther away from the terms of this MOU than we ever have been. And an escalation looks like it may be imminent. So we're going to let that simmer. As the theater war has expanded with, the Houthis getting involved in the Red Sea, possible Russian assistance of Iran strikes, not just, inside of our allied country to hit our bases, but also 2 CIA compounds were hit, and it's got Russia's fingerprints all over it. We'll let that simmer. That's obviously something that could build. We're going to let that simmer. We're going to go another direction today. Senate is in a breakneck pace right now because they're going to take a break. And when they come back from the break, they're only going to be here a little while, and then they're going to hit the campaign trail. And they've got a lot on their plate. One of the things on their plate is the Todd Blanche nomination. Okay. We have gone over it. Cornyn and Tillis so far are a no, or at least were a no going into this weekend. Over the slush fund and over the tax audit immunities specifically. Those two guys, both lame ducks, were holding out their vote. They can't lose a vote. They cannot lose a vote. Not one. And you heard from Cornyn about what he expects, but when you looked under the hood of his demands, he actually didn't have a big problem with the tax audits. He just didn't want it expanding all over the place. But he had no problem dropping any current investigations into Don's taxes and barring the IRS or the DOJ from opening any new investigations. You thought Cornyn was against the immunities altogether. That seemed like the reasonable stance. No. He just didn't want it extending into other Trump entities and further extended family. He's good with Don Jr., Eric, and the Trump org being immune from anything they may have done over the last handful of years at all. Period. Immune. All right. So Todd Blanche saw the writing on the wall. Don, not so much. Don took the usual Don stance, while Todd goes and does the work to get his nomination for Don. Because Don is so damn toxic, and his relationship with the Senate is as bad as it's ever been. So in the face of this criticism, and these two votes that are flippable out of Tillis and Cornyn, you just have to meet them halfway. They are flippable. You can get those two votes. You can get your nomination if you play ball, Don. But no, that's not how Don gets down, especially not with the Senate these days. So on Saturday, he threatened, this $1.8 billion slush fund. If you don't nominate Todd over this, then I'll just withhold his nomination, keep him as acting, and I'll go forward with the slush fund anyway. You want to play hardball with me? You want to say no to me? You want to stiff arm my demands for a slush fund for my allies and J6 rioters? You want to stiff arm this at all? Fine. I'll just keep him acting, and we'll do it anyway. Oh, yeah. He said he would keep Mr. Blanche as the acting attorney general if the Senate failed to confirm him, and added that he would push hard to pass legislation creating the fund. Now, that is specific wording right there. Legislation creating the fund, creating it. Keep that in mind. Put a pin in that. Legislation to create the fund. Okay. He said Todd Blanche was a voice of reason. It will immediately be back on the table, and I'll get it done if you don't confirm my nomination. Another strong arm tactic out of the Don. That's how the mafia works. That's how criminal organizations work. They don't negotiate with a light touch. They strong arm. They threaten. Now, Cornyn didn't immediately respond Saturday to that, as Cornyn has been very outspoken about what he expects from Blanche and the administration on ending the slush fund and changing the wording for the immunities. He has been pretty open and honest and very clear about that. And then Don hits him with this. Now, Cornyn did not respond, not immediately, not on Saturday, but Tillis did on Saturday. He said that the president clearly intends to resurrect the payout pot for punks, either inappropriately establishing another bogus fund or pushing Congress to vote for a bill that the majority of Republicans in the Senate would be against. He's right about that. I just find it so funny. You friggin' coward, Tom Tillis. You got this kind of fiery rhetoric for this guy now that you're lame duck? It's pathetic. Yes, you're saying the right things. I'm glad somebody on the Republican side is saying it, but everything you say, Cornyn says, Cassidy says, I take it with a grain of salt because you're cowards. You're cowards. The White House did not respond to Tillis's comments. They did not. Then came Sunday. And none of this is getting pushed. Other stuff is getting pushed, and all this Fauci stuff. And there now on the back end of these Fauci hearings. But these Fauci hearings and him possibly being perp walked in the future is taking center stage, while this is not. Blanche on Sunday said he struck a deal to resolve all of this. Okay. All right. So he released 2 documents on social media Sunday. 2 documents. One relating to the $1.8 billion slush fund, the other one relating to the provisions in the tax immunities. Okay? Blanche, quote, "My team and I have met with committee members and senators over the past weeks and addressed any concerns or outstanding questions. We have enjoyed good faith discussions, and as a result, issue the following order and update." He has personally signed a statement, and Cornyn went and he confirmed this, that Blanche has signed a statement, and then Blanche posted it later. He signed a statement first about the fund. It is rescinded and shall have no force or effect. He has signed an order that he will not implement such a fund, and he rescinds the creation of it. The one from the settlement, the one he signed off on, he personally has signed a document rescinding it. This is important. The details matter. The details matter. And he said, look, even though I said it wasn't going forward in front of these hearings, now it is officially not going forward. Here's the document. I'm posting on social media. I will not be implementing the fund. I will not be establishing the fund. Todd Blanche. Boom. Okay, Todd. Okay. Well, here's the problem with that. Blanche's order rescinds his signature from May implementing the $1.8 billion funds. But it does not negate the settlement provision requiring the Attorney General to create it. It does not eliminate it. All he can do is promise not to implement such a fund. He cannot actually promise not to create it, because that takes the signature of Trump and the government, a DOJ lawyer, that side of the settlement, right? So Blanche was representing, at the same time as the Attorney General, representing the president's interests, while supposedly being the top defender of the IRS in this lawsuit. That's a conflict. You know that already. Judge Williams laid it out clearly. But in terms of the Trump side, to completely eliminate the need for the creation of the fund, Trump and his lawyers would also have to sign off on that. And they did not. They did not. Blanche is the only one who said, yeah, I agree. I won't implement the fund. This is why Don continues to talk about this. This is why. And you know he's going to continue to talk about this because he already did. After Blanche posted all this, he went back on social media on Sunday and said this. He went back on social media and said, if Senators Cornyn and Tillis, both upset because I wouldn't endorse them, they lost and quit, aren't going to approve Todd Blanche, then I will keep Todd Blanche acting and push hard to get the anti-weaponization bill, which takes care of those who have been so badly treated by crooked Joe Biden. Now you see the difference in the wording. He will push for a bill. He will push for legislation to create this fund. No, Todd won't unilaterally create it and implement it now. He just promised. But Don's going to go to Congress to create legislation to create this fund. He's not done yet.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things.
Citizens, rejoice. The state brings glorious news for the workers. The state seizes the means of production. Intel, U.S. Steel, taken for the glory of MAGA revolution. Our dear leader demands the state's rightful tribute. Companies may only buy or sell with his blessing. In his wisdom, the chairman alone picks winners and losers. He decides what the factory builds, where it stands, which worker keeps his job. No decision too small for our beloved chairman. And behold, the sons of the party. When these champions of the people grace a company's board, government contracts rain down. Drones, defense, mining, millions in shares. Such natural talent runs in the chairman's bloodline. And on every street, the loving embrace of state security. A free people has nothing to hide. Until you love constant surveillance, you don't love the state. Has there ever been a worker's paradise so great, so beautiful, so tremendous?
Sound ridiculous? Of course it is. When all they have left to scream about is imaginary communism, remember, it's not an accusation. It's a confession.
Now back to Brett Breaks Things, smashing spin, silencing the noise, and keeping it all facts. No fluff.
Okay, so here I am telling you right now that $1.8 billion slush fund is not dead yet. It is not dead yet. Todd Blanche says he won't create it unilaterally on the back of that settlement, which Judge Kathleen Williams said had no legal standing. The $10 billion lawsuit by Trump against the IRS, Judge Kathleen Williams said it has no standing. It was brought improperly, and then referred lawyer Acevedo, Todd Blanche, and one other Westingator, I can't remember the third lawyer's name, referred them to the bars, to their respective bars, for punitive damages, for some type of retribution, some type of consequence. And we'll be here for that. So the $1.8 billion fund isn't dead yet. And Trump's telling you it's not dead yet. It still hinges on his nomination, his confirmation, rather. But as far as the tax audit immunities, yeah, Cornyn got what he wanted. His tough demands. I have no problem with the president getting immunity from any audits in the past, any ongoing audits, or any new audits based on the taxes he has submitted. I just have a problem with, his niece getting it. I have a problem with his third cousin on his wife's side getting it. I have problems with other organizations under the Trump org getting the immunity. But I have no problem, says John Cornyn, with Trump, Don Jr., Eric, and the Trump org from enjoying these immunities. And he got it, as that is the other memo that Blanche posted is, okay, great. No problem, John. No problem. I gotcha. Just Don Jr., just Eric, just the Trump org. Drop all investigations. Do not bring any new ones. But Cornyn also had the language of future tax submissions by Trump are not barred, are not exempt. Okay, that's a big one. That is a big one. Thank you for that, John. I do appreciate that. And so that is now signed off on by Todd as well. But I just want you to know, because this is how we do here, I got to know just how against the law could this be? Legal experts, opposition of this, they point to not only is it highly unethical and unprecedented, but it may be illegal as well. Oh, it is illegal. The provision in this settlement is illegal. I'm here to tell you on Brett Breaks Things, it is absolutely illegal. The federal anti-interference statute concerning the IRS, 26 U.S. Code Section 7217, prohibits the president, staff, executive branch officials from directly or indirectly requesting or interfering in any way with any IRS audits. It is illegal. Up to 5 years in prison and a $5,000 fine. Now, yes, you can't indict a sitting president. There's statute of limitations on this stuff. And you can indict Todd Blanche, Mr. Acevedo, all the other lawyers who represented the Trump family in this lawsuit. You can indict them all. Yes, you can. Absolutely. Plus, there is lawful mandatory IRS oversight. Mandatory. Mandatory. Trump is trying to bypass statutory tax administration obligation. What do I mean? They are obligated, are the IRS, by law, to maintain mandatory reviews of the president's taxes. That is a law. Also finable. Also, you can do around 5 years for interfering, standing in the way of mandatory tax oversight of the president. Just so we're all clear that, yes, he is breaking another law. Of course he is. Of course he is. The settlement was illegal. It was illegally brought and presented. It was illegally settled. An illegal conflict of interest, and now illegal provisions within the settlement. The whole damn thing is illegal. Judge Kathleen Williams tried to point it out. She ordered both sides, the IRS, defense, and the Trump administration or Trump family lawyers, to come and prove to her, beyond any doubt, why this isn't a massive conflict of interest. And instead of doing that, they settled. And here's the fallout. And it's so funny to me that Todd Blanche, John Cornyn, Chuck Grassley, none of these people will mention Judge Kathleen Williams' order, that none of this has any legal standing. None of it. They just don't mention it. So now we've got Todd Blanche's confirmation, and the Senate Republicans know that if not now, maybe never. We'll see. Maybe never. We've got this break coming up. Then when we come back, we're only here for a little while. You may have made a deal with Cornyn, but you need Tillis as well. And Trump's posts are a slap in his face. Tillis is the one banging the drum about this slush fund. Hates it in every single way. They have to have his vote. He said he's not ever voting for a guy who would facilitate in any way a slush fund payment to J6 rioters. He's apparently the only Republican willing to take a stance on this, but it only takes one. It only takes one. So what are some other Republicans saying about this? Well, we had the pleasure of hearing from Jim frickin' Jordan. Jim Jordan, man. This guy went on with Dana Bash, and this guy just completely uncomfortable being asked the questions by Dana Bash that multiple Republican senators should be forced to answer. But, of course, Jim Jordan, being the loyal MAGA foot soldier that he is, he was the one willing to pick up the gauntlet, take the challenge by Dana Bash on CNN, and try to defend this slush fund. It is pathetic. Just wait till you hear this guy. It is absolutely pathetic. Dana Bash had a long morning, and this was contentious, and for Jim Jordan really showed his true colors as a MAGA Republican stalwart.
So President Trump making clear from his point of view, the anti-weaponization fund is not dead. You and others have said that you believe it is. So you're the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. Is it dead or is it not?
Well, Todd Blanche, under oath, said it was dead. Todd Blanche needs to be confirmed. I've been in Congress now 19 years. I've never had an attorney general that I could work with like Todd Blanche. I think he's doing an outstanding job. And even Senator Tillis and Senator Cornyn have said he's highly qualified. So they should confirm this guy because he's doing it out, bringing down crime, going after the fraudsters who've been ripping off American tax dollars. Todd's doing a great job. He needs to be confirmed, and let's hope it happens soon. You're right that these two senators are saying that this is unfortunate that this is happening to Todd Blanche because it's about this weaponization fund and the IRS settlement. But on the weaponization fund, are you saying that that the president is not accurate, or he's not telling the truth when he said just this weekend that? Well, I think what the president, what he said, Dana, was in the. I think what he said was in the context of if they're not going to confirm Todd Blanche, then he's going to pull it back and then he's going to renominate Todd Blanche after the election. I think he said that. Okay, if that's what the president wants to do, that's fine. What I want to get is Todd Blanche confirmed because he's doing a good job. I mean, Todd Blanche he was a defense lawyer. Before that, he was a prosecutor. He's a working lawyer. He's doing an outstanding job. And the idea that they won't confirm him and they voted to confirm Merrick Garland.
So
completely neglects to answer the question. And this is a running theme in this interview. Jordan not answering the question. She mentions two truths, poses two truths out of Don, comments that Don made. Not the comments are truthful, but it is the absolute reality that Don made comments. One, that he would pull back Blanche's nomination and keep him as acting as long as he can. But the other part of that she posed to him was, and he threatens to push forward the $1.8 billion fund. Jordan only addresses the fact that, yes, he would pull back the nomination, but he doesn't know anything else about that, and then downshifts back into the propaganda, which is a running theme. Avoid the question, downshift into the propaganda. Let's hear more of Jim Jordan. We haven't heard from him lately because this guy's been putting his foot in his mouth quite a bit during the second Trump presidency, so he's been a little more low profile, but here he is again.
You're an extremist. They confirmed that guy, but they won't confirm Todd Blanche.
What do you think about
that makes
the fund?
no sense.
Do you think the fund is a good idea?
Well, it's no different than what Merrick Garland did with Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. He paid Peter Strzok $1.2 million.
So yes, you think that it should stay alive?
The same. I'm saying there's a fund right now that compensates people who've been wrong.
Well, to
and
add
Merrick Garland said
billion
Peter Strzok got $1.2 million, for goodness sake. But that fund is for people like Mark Houck, who had his door kicked in front of his wife and 7 kids, was taken to court, taken to trial. His lawyer said, we'll show up, we'll meet you wherever. No. They kicked in his door during the Biden administration, and they took him to court. And, of course, the jury found him not guilty. It's for folks like that. That's what that fund's for.
Okay, so
it's been used in the past to compensate Peter Strzok and Lisa Page got $800,000, for goodness sake.
Okay, so he, again, downshifts into other examples, downshifts into the propaganda. She's asking him about a $1.8 billion fund, and he's over here incredulous, clutching his pearls over $1.2 million being given to Peter Strzok over the Trump administration's comments and prosecution and pursuit of him. And then he goes on to mention, some Trump foot soldier that deserves the money. But again, there's a big difference between $1.8 billion and $1.2 million. That Jim doesn't seem to see the fundamental difference there. And now Dana asks him about, okay, you obviously are in support of this fund. You've made that clear. So who should be able to take advantage of it? How about that cyclist, that Olympic swimmer, the Olympic swimmer who was arrested at the reflecting pond and accused of defacing the property, vandalizing, terrorizing the reflecting pond because he was pulling up the bottom of the pool, which later all charges were dropped. What does he have to say about that?
On that note, just kind of looking ahead to who could or should be eligible for the fund, I want to play something that the Interior Secretary Doug Burgum told me about the reflecting pool. Let's watch.
It didn't peel off. There was vandalism. There was box cutters. There have been 7 arrests. There was people literally trying to destroy part of a monument.
And you're 100% sure that what happened with the liner was vandalism. You can prove it.
Oh yeah, absolutely can. And as we drain it, we've got all the photographs.
As you well know, the U.S. Attorney here in D.C., Jeanine Pirro, says that vandalism did not damage the pool, but it was a hasty and botched contract renovation that did. They dropped their case, a criminal case that they had against a former Olympian, David Hearn. Given what he's gone through, should he be eligible for money from the Anti-Weaponization Fund?
Well, that'd be up to the board. I mean, if this thing is formed, remember, that's up to, I don't make the decision. It's up to them. What I do know is Peter Strzok shouldn't have got $1.2 million.
So
and
you
he was
have an
trying
opinion
to
on
undermine
that.
President Trump's election campaign.
You have an opinion that he shouldn't have got it. What about David Hearn?
Well, that'll be up to the board. And I don't know all the facts. This story just broke. I don't know all the facts, why they did, why the Justice Department dropped the case, why the Department of Interior said that there was something there. I'd have to go look at all that. We'd have to look. What I do know is President Trump is focused on making America great and focused on making Washington beautiful again. And he's been focused on that. We'll have to get to the facts of this case. I just don't know.
They were one of the facts now, and this is based on what the president's own U.S. attorney, Jeanine Pirro, who I know you know well, she used to be on Fox, said in a court document. the ramifications of it was that they were trying to send a man who was innocent to jail based on lies about vandalism. He was accused of crimes that he did not commit.
On TV.
As chair of the Judiciary Committee, does that bother you?
If those are the facts, of course, but I don't know that those are the facts. We have not seen all that evidence. What I do know is what I talked about Mark Houck. What I do know what happened in the Garland-Biden Justice Department is FBI whistleblowers that came to us.
I'm asking you about
No, I'm not I'm telling you things I know about. I don't know all the facts with this case, but with those cases I do.
Once you learn all the facts,
and when FBI whistleblowers were retaliated against, that was wrong. That's what this fund is for.
Okay, I am interested. I do want to talk to you again once you get all the facts, because this seems like if you want the weaponization fund, seems like weaponization against somebody. Never mind that he was an Olympian for the United States.
Biden, folks. Peter Strzok. Make America great again. He doesn't have any of the facts of this guy. This case just broke. No, it did not just break. It's been going on for over a month. It's been going on long enough for Burgum to go out, our Interior Secretary, to go out and spread lies about this guy. It's been going on long enough for even Jeanine Pirro to look into it and say, we might have had this one wrong. It's been going on long enough for all of that, but not long enough for you to have any details about it at all while you're completely fired up about Peter Strzok. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. He's pathetic. Can't stand Jim Jordan. Biden. Just answer the question. Oh, I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about that. Don't know anything about that. That's a loss, by the way, for Trump and Doug Burgum and Jeanine Pirro. That's a loss. They put that dude all over TV, accused him of all sorts of stuff. And now they have to come out and publicly say we were wrong about all of it. How does that make Doug Burgum look? That is the price you pay for being a Trump foot soldier within the administration, for being the head of an agency, being asked questions about the lies you tell and doubling down on them while camera and microphones are working. While recording equipment is working properly, you double down on these lies. What you know to be lies. Only to have Jeanine Pirro come out behind you and say, yeah, you were lying about that. We all were. But he's got no opinion on that. But Trump's been taking a lot of losses lately in the legal arena. He's been taking a lot of losses lately. We'll get to another one.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things.
Who's your favorite mob lawyer? Tom Hagen in The Godfather? Saul Goodman in Breaking Bad? Maurice Levy in The Wire? Or how about Neil Mink in The Sopranos? Well, move over. There's a new contender in town. Meet Todd Blanche. He's Donald Trump's personal criminal defense lawyer. You remember Todd Blanche. He's the guy who lost 34 out of 34 counts when a hometown jury convicted Trump of 34 felonies. Todd Blanche is the guy who flew to Florida to meet with the notorious convicted pedophile of our time, Ghislaine Maxwell. Must have been a good meeting. Maxwell was moved from a real prison to a club fed with yoga classes. Even the inmates were offended, being stuck with a pedophile. Now Donald Trump wants his criminal defense lawyer to run the Justice Department. A president's criminal defense lawyer running the Justice Department? Wow, that's Hall of Fame mob lawyer stuff. Todd Blanche. Donald said he'd appoint only the best.
You're back with Brett Breaks Things, where the truth hits harder than the headlines.
It's probably be a quick third segment. I went a little long, but in this segment, I do want to highlight another Trump loss. He's been taking lawsuit losses. Lawsuit losses. Not just losses in the courts, which he's been taking. Judge Kathleen Williams, Judge Leon with the ballroom. There's been numerous. All the judges, all the lawsuits they're losing on forcing the ballot rolls from all the blue states who wouldn't hand them over willingly. They're losing every one of those. Every one of those are getting lost. He's losing. He's losing in the courts. And these lawsuits, this wave of lawsuits that has come out of the Trump administration since the beginning of his second term, he is losing. He lost a defamation lawsuit against the Washington Post. He lost a defamation lawsuit against the New York Times. He lost the Air Force One reporting lawsuit against the New York Times already. The one that we covered here on this show. Why did he switch planes when he was over, in the Middle East? Why did he switch planes before he left again? And the New York Times did reporting, well, that's because they lied to you about how much time they spent retrofitting it and how much time they spent upping the defenses from missile attacks. They didn't spend the money they said they were going to spend on it, and they didn't spend the time they needed to spend on it. And it wasn't adequate to protect the president's life flying around that region. That's all the New York Times reported on. Had multiple sources. Trump sued him. Lost that. Then there's that wonderful Atlantic article about Kash Patel and his drunken escapades as our FBI director. I don't have to rehash that whole article, but Kash sued $50 million, something like that. Lost. Done. Trump sued the Wall Street Journal over the reporting on the birthday card note. Yeah, turns out all of that was factual. Every bit of that was corroborated, and Trump lost that one as well. So just so we're clear, it made a lot of news when Trump was suing these people. Not as much news, not as splashy when he loses these lawsuits, meaning everything they reported about him and his cronies was factual. Well, now they took a new loss. And this one's embarrassing. And we're going to do one of those, we're going to just kind of sideswipe this one. We're just going to brush up against it because this one could have some lasting consequences. But they've taken a loss of their own making. A loss of their own making. We're talking about a lawsuit against Capital One. The case is Donald J. Trump Revocable Trust versus Capital One. Okay? It was originally filed in the Southern District of Miami as a part of these waves, this huge wave of litigation, wave of lawsuits out of Trump. This was one of them. Why? Because Capital One summarily closed all of Don's accounts. All of Don's accounts. That's right. All of the Trump organizations, should I say, accounts, just closed them all. This was in 2021, right after the Capitol 6 riots, or J6 Capitol riots. In 2021, he also sued J.P. Morgan for the same reason in 2021 over his personal accounts being closed. Okay, so two lawsuits, one against Capital One, one against J.P. Morgan Chase. But we're going to focus on the Capital One suit right now. Originally filed in the Southern District of New York. The Trump Organization claimed this is the reason why Capital One immediately closed all their accounts. Illegally debanking the president's company because of political discrimination following the assault on the Capitol by his supporters on January 6, 2021. They claim, the Trump Organization claims, that Capital One closed all of the Trump org accounts because of political discrimination following J6. Capital One tried to play ball. Capital One tried to avoid this. Capital One gave the Trump Organization and Don himself every opportunity to get out from under this with zero press. Just everybody move on. Just let this one go. They tried. Trump wouldn't have it. That's not how a petulant child acts. Trump wouldn't have it, wouldn't drop it. So, a judge originally in Florida dismissed the case because this claim of discrimination was baseless, no evidence. But the judge did leave it open for them to refile later, knowing the restrictions, knowing the ruling on it, knowing what the judges were looking for as far as discrimination evidence. They allowed the Trump Organization to refile down the road. Get your crap together, get some evidence, get evidence from Capital One, get some interviews done, and try again. And they did. And they did. And now, in an effort to try again, Capital One has finally been forced to submit court filings and make public the reason they closed all those accounts. Let's hear from Capital One why they closed those accounts in 2021. It closed the accounts belonging to President Donald Trump's sprawling real estate company in 2021 for legitimate reasons after an internal review by the bank's anti-money laundering team. As I give you the details of this, you got to keep it, this is not some casual decision made by Capital One's anti-money laundering team. The implications of this, the weight of this, the backlash of something like this is fully known to an anti-money laundering, internal review team. It's fully known by them. Capital One is giant. This would be public. This would be embarrassing. This would cause retribution out of the president. They would not come to a decision like this lightly. Keep that in mind. Capital One said the internal review, I want to use their words, said the internal review was triggered by transaction patterns that are among the type of activity flagged by federal banking guidance. The bank said it's only making the anti-money laundering review public now as a result of the litigation. Now, that says two things to me. One, his patterns of transactions, his transactional patterns, led to a review. And after a rigorous investigation and review by this internal committee, this anti-money laundering committee, then they closed the accounts. They didn't close the accounts, willy-nilly off just some transactional patterns. The patterns were the impetus for a rigorous investigation. And you better believe it was rigorous, because they probably did everything they could to debunk these patterns and what they may be referring to, what they may be leading to. God forbid Don's been laundering money through us, and God forbid we have to close all of his accounts because of this. And guess what they found? Well, they ended up closing the accounts, didn't they? You better believe they tried to avoid this. Not only did they try to avoid this, they said, we never made our investigation public. We never referred any charges to anybody. We never accused Don of anything. And we gave them several months to find new banking services adequate to their standards. We will ease the transition, and we will keep our mouths shut. They went through all of this to avoid what you and I are discussing right now. But Don couldn't let it go. He couldn't let it go. And now we all know that Capital One closed all of Don's Trump org accounts because of money laundering. Money laundering. Now, the Trump lawyers are saying, hey, this is bullcrap, because if they had told us that we were under investigation, we could have explained these transactions. Capital One shot right back. They said, first of all, that's not how internal investigations go. An internal review. Because we would have never brought this if we didn't have to. Also, Trump lawyers, there's nothing you could have said to explain this away, leading us to make this painful ass decision. There was nothing you could have presented us or said to us during the internal review or after our findings that would have changed a damn thing. Sorry. So, Capital One, they said, look, this was a months-long review. Money laundering reasons. And, quote, the closures were a result of an analysis and careful review by our laundering team in accordance with bank policies and regulatory guidance. Very simple, very matter of fact. Now, what's the statute of limitation on money laundering? It's 5 years. It's 5 years. Let this simmer. let this simmer. We're brushing up against it now. But like many Trump, violations of the Constitution and flat illegal activities, we have to let this simmer. We have no power now. But when we do have power, what could we do about this? Well, Capital One already collected all the evidence. It's already collected. All they'd have to do is hand it over to the House Committee on Finance and Services. They have a subcommittee on oversight and investigations. Or you could hand it over to the Judiciary Committee. Yeah, sure. You could hand it to the Judiciary Committee, have them run an investigation, and they could then give referrals for charges to the DOJ. A DOJ by that time, which may just decide to take them up on the offer. You can't indict a sitting president. No, you can't. And you can't indict a sitting president for actions or decisions made in service of his office. A lot of things fall under that umbrella. But you would have a hard time defending Don somehow correlating money laundering through Capital One with his duties in the executive branch. You'd have a hard time. You want to talk about real gymnastics? You want to talk about Olympic level gymnastics? Go ahead and try. You may be forced to try, Trump lawyers. Because it looks like Capital One has already done the investigating for the Judiciary Committee. Just let this one simmer. Just let it simmer. This is what a Trump loss looks like. Next segment, we are going to talk about a Trump win. I hate to put it that way. I hate to drop that bomb, but he doesn't always lose. He doesn't always lose in this arena. Sometimes he gets wins. I love bringing you the losses. And let's just let this one simmer, like a lot of the stuff, like the insider trading, protecting the Kalshi and Poly Market? Yeah, protecting them because Don Jr. has stakes in them, handing out government contracts, no bid to your family members. A lot of this has there that we just can't do much about, just like this one. Just like this one. But there's wins too. He's not just pulling L's. He's pulling a few dubs too. And he has got a W that is going to reverberate. One that will change what it is to be America, change the ideals of America. A huge W for Trump and a terrible, terrible loss for what it means to be American.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break.
Lincoln understood something that comfortable people didn't want to hear. A nation cannot be half one thing and half its opposite and survive. Not forever, not even for long. In his time, the question was slavery, the moral rot at the foundation, the thing everyone knew was wrong and almost no one would say. Ours is a different rot, but Lincoln's diagnosis is the same. You cannot be half democracy and half autocracy.
I can do anything I want.
Have free press.
Their license should be taken away.
And have state propaganda. Have rule of law and have rule of one man. The House is dividing again. Lincoln told us what that means. Are we listening?
A message from the Lincoln Project to the Democratic Party. Stop looking backward. We got whooped. Stop with the endless focus groups. Stop with the self-doubt. This isn't complicated. Only 1 out of 4 voters think we're heading in the right direction. Inflation is out of control. Gas is headed to $6 a gallon. Donald Trump is the most corrupt president in history. Republicans don't care. They're good with Trump taking your tax dollars to pay off cop beaters. The Justice Department operates like mob lawyers. The Epstein files? Not one prosecution. It's a joke. AI threatens every middle-class job and is turning billionaires into trillionaires. And Democrats are asking how to win? At the Lincoln Project, we don't have an identity crisis. We're here to beat the crap out of MAGA and save the country we love. You want to win? Attack, attack, attack. We do it better than anybody. If you're tired of playing games, join the fighters. Support the Lincoln Project. Let's get this done.
Because I've had enough.
You're back with Brett Breaks Things, because silence isn't an option.
Okay. All right. What does a Trump win look like? Any Trump win is bad for us. Any Trump win is bad for us. Honestly. I don't want it to be that way. When you talk about American tradition, one American tradition that we thought was baked into our country and our legacy and our history, that we attached ourselves to, was to stand up for what is right. Stand up for what's right. And we have many iconic figures throughout the years that kind of embodied this, that we love because of this. Like John Wayne and, the Lone Ranger. Lone Ranger, you could go further. You could, Elliot Ness and the Untouchables. Doing whatever you have to do to make things right. You can even look at today's Avengers, the MCU, the Avengers, doing whatever you have to do to make things right. That was an American tradition. It has been. Yes, you can look under the hood and find things that we've done that fly in the face of that, but I think if you ask the average American, regardless of political affiliation, what's a tried and true American ideal? The rule of law, consequences for your actions, standing up for the little guy, making things right. Sometimes someone has to put on a cape or put on a mask and jump on a horse and ride into the fray, regardless of the danger. There is a law firm that used to do that. They used to embody it. Weiss, Rifkin, Wharton, and Garrison. Law firm of Paul Weiss, Rifkin, Wharton, and Garrison. They were the ones who put on a mask and rode into the fray on the behalf of the little guy. That's what they did. Since the 1930s, they did this. This firm has built a reputation over the decades. The original social justice warriors. They represented the Scottsboro Boys, which I don't know if you know or not. I didn't. I had to do some digging in 1931. 9 black teenagers from the ages of 12 to 19 were arrested for rape in Alabama. 2 girls. They accused these gentlemen of raping them. It went to trial. The trial was days long, a few days long, and resulted in 8 of them getting the death penalty. The death penalty. There was no evidence, no physical evidence or medical evidence of the attack. Supreme Court went on to back when the Supreme Court used to work, went on to overturn the decision based on the work of Paul Weiss's firm. Turns out it never happened. One of the girls, Ruby Bates, recanted her account of the night and went on to flatly say it never happened. We made it up. This happened largely because of the work of Paul Weiss, the Paul Weiss firm. They supported Brown v. Education. They hired iconic progressive figures like Thurgood Marshall, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. They were iconic. They were iconic. And they went through changes over the years. You can't put food on the table doing all pro bono work, which is what they were known for, these high-profile pro bono cases. So in 2008, fast forward, a guy named Brad Karp, he became chairman. And Brad Karp wanted to balance the pro bono social justice work. He wanted to keep doing that, but he also wanted to up their corporate law. And they actually landed a giant private equity firm, Apollo Global, in 2011, and that really skyrocketed their revenues and really vaulted them into the corporate law side of their practice while still honoring their progressive roots. Karp was getting that done. He was. During Trump's first term, Karp and the Weiss firm led the legal challenges to a lot of what Don was doing. They sued over the travel ban. They sued over separating migrant families at the southern border. They sued over LGBTQ rights. They sued over environmental protections, all sorts of things challenging Trump policy. It was them still. It culminated their progressive roots, their progressive movement, progressive advancements. That side of the business culminated with making Lex Korber a partner. Lex Korber was the face of the progressive movement in the firm, a partner now, and is transgender. And around the same time, they hired another guy named Barchet. This guy Barchet, he had another agenda. Scott Barchet. He was a big hire, millions and millions above, what other lawyers in similar positions were making at the time. And they hired him to further the corporate side of things. And by 2023, 65% of the firm's revenue was coming from Barchet's corporate law ties. It was taking off. It was becoming a bigger part of the firm, and it was the part of the firm that was making all the money. And Barchet and Korberg, the transgender partner, they started to butt heads a little bit. Barchet started to claim that having a transgender partner is against our corporate interests. Yeah. He said, quote, high-profile social justice cases alienated corporate clients and advocated for running the firm strictly as a business only. Let's stop the pro bono stuff. Let's stop the social justice. Let's stop the progressive movement. We should just be a business. The fight progressed, okay? Fight broke out. It progressed. And it ended with Korberg walking away. Barchet won. Korberg resigned. And then the Weiss firm made Korberg sign a $3.5 million deal to keep their mouth shut. That's right. And they signed it. They did it. They signed it, went about their business. But this little agreement prohibited Korberg from saying anything disparaging or revealing in public any of the discussions Barchet or any of the top brass at the firm had to say. Any discussions barred from all of it. Now, when Trump took office this second term, he wasn't privy to the internal struggle going on at the Paul Weiss firm. He only knew what they had done during his first term. He knew them as radical leftists, and he knew them as enemies. He didn't need to be hip to any of the, fights and the machinations internally, the politics going on at the firm. That didn't interest him. Them forcing out the transgender partner didn't hit his radar. He simply remembered the sues over the travel ban, the sues over the immigrant, suing over LGBTQ, suing over his environmental policies. That's all he remembered. So, one of the first things he did was sign an executive order in his second term. It was called, this executive order was called Addressing Risks from Paul Weiss. That was the name of the order that he signed. He saw an ultra-progressive pro bono firm that has done amazing social justice work in the past as an existential threat to his agenda. And he's right. Based on what they had done in the past, they would have been an existential threat had they maintained that posture, that movement, those roots, but they had not. So, Don signs this order, and of course he expects pushback. He expects lawsuits, challenges to this. And by the way, the order was beautiful. It took away every lawyer at the firm's security clearance. You're not allowed on any federal property anymore. And it barred the firm from getting any government contracts at all. What kind of contracts would a law firm get? Well, contracts like consulting. I apologize. Consulting jobs. A lot of the lawyers at this firm would get hired by different government agencies because many of the lawyers at this firm were legal experts in certain areas. So our government would go to this giant firm and say, hey, we'd like to use this lawyer to, consult us on this policy or this law or whatever. It happened all over the place. All of that stopped. But not only did all of that stop, it would force anybody who is involved with the firm, who does have a government contract, to sever all ties. Any of their clients across the board that has any work at all with the government would have to sever ties with the firm as well. That is what the executive order said. Don expected pushback. Don expected a fight. What did he get instead? Barchet and the leadership at Paul Weiss, they capitulated. They bent the knee, and they came with a bag of money. Quote, this is out of the text to the partners on their stance about this executive order. They said, we're going to make a deal. We would perform $40 million in free legal work for causes that the Trump administration championed. It turns out, once the dust settled, it'd be more like $1 billion in free legal work for the any Trump organization, family member, or causes or allies of Trump. $1 billion in free legal work for them. $1 billion. It also went on to say in this text to the partners that it would show no political favoritism going forward at all, and its pro bono work would, quote, represent the full spectrum of political viewpoints. Their entire legacy is gone. Dust in the wind. Dashed. Done. It also promised that it would hire experts that work with the Trump administration to sign off on any future hires. You know what that means. Loyalists only. Foot soldiers only. Zealots only. They are absolutely done fighting for the little guy. Instead, they're going to fight for the bully for free. Their legacy is gone. And when I say their legacy is gone, I mean they're literally erasing it. As after this deal was made with the Trump administration, they immediately went on their website. It's the website for the Center to Combat Hate. That's what their website was called. The Center to Combat Hate. They went on their website to combat hate and erased all records of any litigation against Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, or any J6 rioters, and even went on to scrub any cases they had working against white supremacist groups. They did that in an attempt to not piss off Don any further. Don, you say you're not racist, but the racists think you're racist. And the people who fought against racism think you're racist. I'm sorry. Did you not hear about that one on CNN? Was this not making the rounds? Maybe that's because it's profoundly sad. Profoundly disturbing. Laura Van Dree, who is a spokesperson for Paul Weiss, for the Paul Weiss firm, said, quote, that any assertion that our independence has been jeopardized is completely false. She said that Paul Weiss's pro bono work had continued to increase and could not come up with any examples at all where their pro bono work opposed the Trump administration. And you can go digging because you won't find any ever again. Well done. You bent the knee. You bent the knee. You gave him $1 billion in free work. You scrubbed any of your work against anything that he holds dear, like racism and rioting. And then you crescendoed by telling the most Trumpian of lies. Even after we, right here, just spent 8-9 minutes discussing how their independence is gone, they want to come out and tell you that any discussion about our independence being gone is false. Is false. Great. Great. The Lone Ranger just got shot out of his saddle and is laying dead on the desert as the bank robbers make away with the vault. And they took the barmaid with them. Done. Done. We got some stuff we're looking at. Like I said, the Senate is it's on a breakneck pace. I got to recover from this story. It profoundly affects me. Honestly, it makes me feel things, that story. But moving on, and stuff we'll be getting to is the Senate is working at a breakneck pace. Yeah, Scotty, what's up? Oh, what's up? Yeah. Sorry, we're having a little conversation here. So, yeah, the Senate is working at a breakneck pace. They're going to push through the budget supplement through reconciliation. That's going to have the SAVE Act tied to it, $12 billion for the SAVE Act, $10 billion for the farmers, and $68 billion for the Trump administration's war chest. They're pushing through a stopgap bill because our government's going to run out of funding, by the way, on October 1st. So we have to get funding through. What they're proposing is December 11th. That's got some interesting things in it. We're going to talk about that when the time's appropriate. But some stuff in it does raise some eyebrows. Now, the Senate is discussing this proposal, and it's got one provision in there that's going to block the Office of Management and Budget from adopting a rule that would give political appointees sweeping power to cancel federal grants. That's in there. That's a big rebuke of Trump policy. And there's some other things. And they've also got some nominations, like 14 nominations they're trying to rush through. So we'll see how that goes. They're going to be on break. Then they'll be back. And I'll see you kids tomorrow.
They'll try to repair the narrative, but Brett Breaks Things will be back tomorrow to break it all down.